So, what is depression? And what are depressions? Depression comes from the Latin word deprimere, which means to bring it down, or to push it down, or to push something down, whatever it is. Now, this is a problem that happens with women doubled as much as it happens with men. Now here's the brain, and I'm going to show you right now what happens when you're depressed. Now, but first I just wanted to give you an overview of the certain parts that are relevant for depressions. What happens when you're feeling depressed? I'm not going to cover the physiology of what happens when you're depressed, but I'm going to show you where it happens in your brain, and a little bit of physiology and psychology as well. Now, so that you know what happens when you're depressed, and so that you know that depression is merely something in your brain and not some external force that is happening outside of your power, and so on. Only if it is genetic, then this is really something that you cannot control. Now here's the story. The main parts that are involved in depressions are the prefrontal cortex, the right one, and the left one. As I have explained already, which lobe and which part of your brain is responsible for your negative emotions, and which part of your brain is responsible for the positive emotions. So, the left side of your brain is your positive side, and the right side is your negative side, sadly. Now, sadly that you have a negative side, but the negative side is very important. You cannot just drop it. If you're going to throw this part of your brain, exactly this part of your brain, which is your frontal part of your brain, it's going to be problematic. I wouldn't want to see that happen. Now, why? Because it involves many other kinds of activities that are responsible for your thinking and other kinds of things associated with it. Now, this part of the brain was removed in one person. This poor guy, Phineas Cage, in the 1800s, this guy had like a rod coming this way, and it entered his brain. It came out the other side. I mean, it came from this side, I think, from this side, and it came out the other side. Now, the real story, I don't know about it, but you can certainly check it and see what happened to this poor man. Now, this guy survived, but the problem is, this guy was a very nice man, and the problem is that people that knew him were surprised at what happened to this guy after the operation or after this accident, because this guy turned into some other guy. No, just kidding. This guy turned into a very aggressive person. His social behavior changed, and he turned into a vampire compared to his old self. I mean, he became very aggressive, and he turned into somebody else. I mean, he developed different behaviors, very, very different from what he was before. Now here's the story here. This part of your brain is involved in depressions. What happens? This part of your brain, which is the prefrontal cortex and the orbital frontal cortex. Orbital because this is this part of the brain, that surrounds the eyes, the orbita. Now this part of your brain, this front, this one, exactly this one, as you can see, this has and shows a decreased activity in under the once it's examined. Now here's the and the other part of your brain that is that really takes a hit when you're depressed, and these are all reversible. Now these change, these part of your brain change when you're depressed. If you have like a depressive episode, a lesser activity is noticed, definitely. But if you have a major depression, then you would clearly see a very decreased activity here in this part of the brain. Now, let me remove this part and show you the other parts that are that really take a hit from depression. This. Now, these are called the basal ganglia, right here. This is one of the components of the basal ganglia, and it's called the putamen. This part and the basal ganglia in general are involved in emotions and also in the voluntary movements of your body. Now, and the other part that also is involved in depressions is my favorite buddy right here, the hippocampus. You can see this hippocampus. I'm going to fade others to show you. This interesting alien creature is also involved in depressions and also in memory. Now, the other part is the thalamus. The thalamus is right here. Is also involved in depressions, and it also shows a decreased activity. And the amygdala also shows a decreased activity. Amygdala is basically the for the fight and flight response responsible is responsible for these, and this also shows if you're having negative emotions. This shows an increase in the blood flow by about 50%. Now, let me show you the blood flow that reaches the amygdala. This, my friend, is an example of the arteries that supply the amygdala. Now, this is your amygdala right here. This is going to show an increase in the blood flow and metabolism. Now, why? Because the amygdala, as I said, is mostly responsible for the fear that you show once you are confronted by something. If you see a bear, this is gonna light up like a light bulb, so that you can escape as fast as you can. And if you're depressed, this is also going to be very, activated, and it shows. If you're going to look at certain sad photos, you would definitely look sad photos of yourself. You're going to see an increased metabolism and a lot of blood flow to the amygdala.